Hello, my name is Jim Hemingway. I created these posters I call Pro Football Dashboards recently, and I'd like to tell you about them. In this case, I've got the Miami Dolphins on the wall. The idea was to put on one poster like a 50-year statistical history of a team, and to be able to correlate performance statistics with personnel changes, with what else was going on in the league. And I tried to do that here. So let me step back and show you. We have 6 images on the poster here. Right here we've got, in the top left, we've got what I call the personnel chart. Below that, the team's season and scoring summary. In the middle, we've got offensive and defensive metrics. And over on the right, first-round draft picks performance, and then Pro Bowl players from the team. So let's start up in the top left with the personnel and drill into that. So you can see across the top as columns, we've got the seasons from 1966 to 2014. All the charts and the data on the poster have that same span of years. The first group is the coaches, the head coaches for the Dolphins. You can see Don Shula there, the long blue tenure, and all the coaches get it color-coded. Quarterbacks are here, Bob Greasy, light blue, Dan Marino in green, etc. All the rest are color-coded. Running backs, you can see there's a lot more turmoil there. And then the stadiums that the Dolphins have played in. Orange Bowl up until '86, and Joe Robbie, and then various incarnations of Joe Robbie. Down below, we've got synchronized with the personnel. We've got 5 basic pieces of information down here. So the red line shows regular season wins. The blue bars and gray, the blue and gray bars show how many playoff games they either played in the case of the gray or won in the case of the blue. According to the height of the bar. So, for example, in '73, they won Super Bowl VIII. They played 3 playoff games, won them all. And there's a little text box, describing exactly what the outcome was. Down below that, we've got the green little lines here. Those are the points scored by the offense. The red line are points allowed by the defense. The pink range that goes around the red line, and the green range that goes around the green line is the range of values for the NFL, for the entire league, for that metric for that season. So you can see in this year, in 1967, the Dolphins were they allowed 407 points. That was almost the worst in the league that year. And for the defensive points, down is worse, up is better, and for offense, up is better, down is worse. And then the blue column is merely the difference between the two numbers, so the point difference. And obviously, positive numbers are good, negative numbers are bad, and you can see what the Dolphins look like over the years. So let's move over into the offensive and defensive metrics, and I'll give you a flavor for what exactly the posters are good at showing. So here's offensive metrics. We have 4 of them: yards per game, net yards per pass attempt, percent passing plays, describing the team's offensive philosophy, how often they go for it on 4th down. And then for defense, yards per game, yards per carry, net yards per pass attempt, the sack ratio, and turnovers. And on both offense and defense, we've got the coach legend superimposed right there and there. And then on the offense, we also have the QB. So what's interesting about the Dolphins is what happened when Don Shula arrived. So here's the coach legend. So George Wilson is the dark blue, and Don Shula arrives in 1970. So he's the light blue. You can see immediately the team switches from being a primarily passing team, so where pass plays were above average. And by the way, on all the offensive and defensive metrics, the Dolphins' value is the blue line, and the sort of pastel-colored background shows you the range of values for the league. Green is meaning above average, or from average to max, and pink means from average to min. So you can see, for example, on percent passing plays, the Dolphins were in the top half in the green area before Shula got there. And after he got there, they immediately dropped down into the pink, meaning they were passing a lot less than the league average. And they stayed there, all the way well into the Dan Marino era here. So there's one thing that, so this difference in offensive philosophy was picked up by the poster. Second thing to show is the difference in the quarterback quality over the years. You can see the light blue, this is Bob Greasy here. You can see he started off when Wilson was the coach, doing kind of quite poorly. When Shula gets there in 1970, his performance improves right away. And then David Woodley comes on in 1980. He has 3 bad seasons. And then Marino gets drafted. He comes in. He does very well for 15 years. Has that monstrous season in 1984, and then kind of slowly deteriorates. And then we see Jay Fiedler in red, and then the send in the clowns, where we have different quarterbacks essentially every year, and you can see how poorly they've been doing. Down on the defensive metrics, another thing that the poster shows is how some of the stats are related to each other. For example, if you look at the sack ratio down here, and we look at it in conjunction with this stat here, net yards per pass attempt, you can see that the two run basically are negatively correlated. When sack ratio gets better, the yards per pass attempt gets lower, and of course, for obvious reasons, if you get a good pass rush, the other team can't throw that effectively. And so you can see the ups and downs in that are mirrored in the sack ratio. So now let's go over to the draft picks and the Pro Bowl players. So you can see that the Dolphins, the scale on this chart, or the x-axis, is the number of games played as a pro by the pick each season. And now the seasons are the rows here, and the x-axis is the number of games played. Green players are offense, red players are defense. You can see with the Dolphins that actually, compared to other teams, there's not a whole lot of first-round draft pick success. I use the mark 160 here for a 10 season career, and the Dolphins only have a few players who've reached that threshold. The successful players they have had have by and large been not acquired in the first round. But you can see Dan Marino here. 1983, played 240 or so games. Bob Greasy, Hall of Fame, drafted in '67. But you can see all the different first-round draft picks. And then down below with the Pro Bowl players, you can kind of see the different eras of the team here. Then there's first the Don Shula, Bob Greasy, Larry Zonka era, and the no-name defense. And then we get into the '80s with Marino, Mark Clayton, Mark Duper, those guys, Richmond Webb, and then the defensive-oriented Dolphins from right around the turn of the century. Zach Thomas, Jason Taylor, Brock Marion, and those guys. And then now you can see that the Pro Bowl selections have declined over time. Other teams that also show that are like the Raiders, the Rams, that were good maybe in the '70s and have fallen on hard times to some extent. So the posters are designed, like I said, to be a 50-year history. I've shown you a lot of what the posters are good at depicting. I hope you find them interesting. So if you're interested in learning more about them, profootballdashboards.com is my website. Go out there, check them out. You can see other samples for different teams. If you have email questions, pfdinfo@comcast.net. Again, profootballdashboards.com, the $39.95 for one, or buy two, get the third free. So I hope you found this interesting. Thanks a lot.